Christopher Nolan is a celebrated British-American filmmaker known for complex storylines and experimental editing techniques to create captivating and comprehensive films. Nolan has many different director trademarks, but today we will be focusing on three: film noir, practical effects over CG, and the use of IMAX film cameras over digital cameras.
I think in various ways all the films I've done have relied on that film noir dynamic.
Film noir is a style that features darker tones and themes of corruption, betrayal, and violence. Christopher Nolan takes inspiration from many old classic film noir Hollywood films and adds his own neo-noir style to his films. Some traits of film noir that he likes to incorporate are non-linear timelines and complex, often unreliable characters, highlighting issues surrounding identity, cynical attitudes, and existentialist philosophy. Nolan's film Inception is a good example of his unique style, combining science fiction and characteristics of film noir and neo-noir. Nolan specifically uses in media res to abruptly introduce the viewer to the intricate narrative, establishing the non-linear timeline. The rest of the film often jumps around to different times and flashbacks to keep the viewer engaged and encourage them to think deeper about the film. For example, Inception begins with a shot of two aged men whom we know nothing about. This makes us wonder and forces us to follow the characters more closely and rely on them for more information. In media res is a typical film noir trait. This reliance on the narrator enhances the mystery and suspense, since different viewers can have different perceptions of the film. In an article written by Kyle Turner, he says the presentation of first-person narration or internal monologue within neo-noir has a drastic effect on this understanding of truth, altering sequences and twisting the audience's perception of the story to an extent where all is manipulated. It is narration that drives these stories and thus affects the audience's perception of truth and reality. While Turner is referring to another Nolan film, Memento, Cobb has the same effect on the viewers of Inception. Because we don't fully trust Cobb, the ending is ambiguous and we don't know if he truly returned to reality or if he is still dreaming. This ambiguity is a trademark of film noir where the line between truth and deception is blurred. Because of this, the audience's intellectual and emotional involvement is enhanced, adding to the complexity and nuances of Nolan's films. This contributes to why his films are so rewatchable, as you can find new details with each additional viewing. One of Nolan's works with more traditional characteristics of film noir is Batman Begins from the Dark Knight trilogy, where he portrays Bruce Wayne in the crime-ridden city of Gotham. This particular scene of the film where he captures mob boss Falcone is another example of his use of film noir. This scene has a series of fast-paced shots, ranging from close-up shots to medium shots to wide shots.
Where are you?
Here.
There are multiple close-up shots used to underscore the emotions each character is experiencing, and to make the audience feel the same way. For example, in the close-up shot of Falcone's reaction to the commotion happening outside, we can see exactly when he realizes something is wrong, highlighting the intensity of the moment. The mise-en-scène of this shot also increases the mystery and tension. The men are framed by symmetric shipping containers, making them feel closed off and more anxious. Stark lighting is also a classic trait of film noir, and throughout the whole sequence, low-key lighting is maintained. This creates a harsher contrast between the shadows and the light to enhance the mysterious and intimidating feeling of the presence of Batman. Nolan's stylistic choice could also symbolize Batman's view of the world being black and white at this moment. His vigilantism is influenced by his moral clarity and the distinction between good and evil. Now let's talk about another trademark of Nolan's films, his use of practical effects over computer-generated imagery or CGI, from crashing a real 747 airplane into a building in Tenet, planting 500 acres of corn for Interstellar, to recreating the explosion of an atomic bomb in Oppenheimer. Nolan is obviously extremely dedicated to doing the real thing, rather than resorting to the computer. But why?
On Oppenheimer, we chose a practical route. Capturing everything in camera, even when it was strongly advised against by the production team, safety officers, and certain members of the cast. Even when it would enhance the film or correct visible mistakes, I avoided CGI at all costs. It wouldn't be honest. It wouldn't be authentic.
Committed to preserving the realism of the film, Nolan and his cinematography team achieved certain looks and effects through innovative methods and engineering their own devices instead of turning to CGI when Nolan's ideas seemed unachievable. Today I'll be focusing on the effects seen in Nolan's most recent film, Oppenheimer.
Troubled by visions of a hidden universe.
It seems like those shots of particles and energy waves were computer generated, but in reality they were not. While creating these visual effects on the computer seems much simpler than figuring out a way to portray them in real life, Nolan chooses the latter option. In an article published by the American Society of Cinematographers written by Ian Marks, he says, for one of the atomic energy effects, Jackson simulated waves of energy with wires connected to metal beads that spun in the tank via a motor with a flexible central arbor. The spinning wires were disturbed to create a ripple along their length, while Jarzewicki shot them with long exposures, so we got a long, wobbly, blurred shot that was supposed to represent electrons orbiting a nucleus of an atom, says Jackson. Instead of relying on digital renderings, which can often feel artificial and detached, by simulating energy waves with wires and metal beads, this scene has a more authentic sense of Oppenheimer's inner feelings at this moment. We can truly witness the manifestation of his inner turmoil through his visions of the quantum world. Nolan has also stated that he enjoys using practical effects just because they are more fun.
Sometimes when you're asked to justify these things like not using green screen, you have to just bring it down to, well, it's so much more fun to do it. It's fun for the actors, it's fun for me. There's nothing more dispiriting than when you turn up to work and there's just a green screen with a couple of actors in front of it. It's really, the magic's not there.
As he said, instead of trying to act in front of a green screen, interacting with real props and sets produces more genuine reactions, which leads to better and more compelling performances. Instead of simply seeing these events play out on the screen, the viewer can experience them through feeling and truly connect with the characters. The realism of his shots gives us a genuine connection to the story, something that CGI can fail to provide. Nolan's next trademark goes hand in hand with his use of practical effects over CGI, as he prefers to shoot using analog film over digital cameras, specifically IMAX film. IMAX film provides viewers with the most immersive experience as it has the largest resolution format, using 70mm film, which is 10 times larger than the standard 35mm film. Nolan's preference for film over digital captures a realistic feeling, and the use of IMAX allows viewers to be more engaged and immersed in the film's world. Additionally, IMAX cameras align with Nolan's commitment to practical effects over CGI, as the larger aspect ratio makes it harder to hide artificial content. In Oppenheimer, Nolan's use of 70mm IMAX film has a deeper effect on the viewer beyond the ginormous screen and funny angles of Cillian Murphy. In an article published by the American Society of Cinematographers written by Ian Marks, he says, the filmmakers veered away from composing the horizon at the lower third of the frame, which is standard for shooting on IMAX. We could frame a landscape with a lot of negative space at the top for dramatic effect, but in 70mm IMAX, we frame our horizon literally through the center, respecting the way your eye scanning naturally works and to get the most effect from your peripheral vision, the cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema explains. It's a more functional image. The essential information floats through the center toward the viewer while the peripheral vision adds life and an atmosphere, not allowing reflectance over framing and its meaning, but allowing viewers to live within a frame. It's our attempt to try to engage with an audience in a more direct and intuitive way, as opposed to an intellectual exchange. The large IMAX format allows the viewer to feel like they are inside the film, experiencing its events and feelings in real time. Another example of Nolan's stylistic choice regarding film formats is his unique use of interchanging aspect ratios, which can evoke different emotional responses and convey overarching themes. For example, in Dunkirk, he uses various aspect ratios to create a sense of claustrophobia and psychological entrapment. Similarly, in Oppenheimer, the film alternates between the standard 2:20:1 ratio and the traditional IMAX 1:43:1 ratio. The film primarily focuses on J. Robert Oppenheimer and his complex emotions surrounding his deadly creation, the nuclear bomb, showing a range of emotions like happiness, loathing, guilt, and more. Like in Dunkirk, the changing aspect ratios in Oppenheimer portray a deeper meaning of the film. The deliberate use of different aspect ratios reflects the characters' changing perspectives and views of the world. For example, the IMAX ratio is often used when the bigger picture and issues of deception versus the truth and morality are depicted, like when Oppenheimer and Einstein discuss the alarming potential of the bomb destroying the world.
And if the truth is catastrophic,
then you stop and you share your findings with the Nazis.
In conclusion, Christopher Nolan's unique filmmaking and storytelling style encourages viewers to look beyond the surface and explore the immersive world of his films fully.